Hello, I'm Colleen Gallagher, CEO at Onward and Upward, and you're listening to the Association Insights podcast, where each week we interview association leaders from across the country to hear how they're trying new things, taking big risks, and delivering value for their members. We'll explore the realities of what it means to work in and with associations and bring you the insights and inspiration you need to advance your career and make big changes at your association. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Association Insights. I'm your host, Colleen Gallagher, and today we're welcoming back a repeat guest for a very important conversation about the current economic climate and outlook with Dr. Bill Conerly of Conerly Consulting. Bill connects the dots between the economy and business decisions. He has the unique combination of a PhD in economics from Duke University and over 30 years of experience helping companies adapt to changing economic conditions. He was formerly senior vice president at a major bank and held positions in economics and corporate planning at 2 Fortune 500 corporations. Dr. Conerly has also earned the Chartered Financial Analyst designation and is a regular Forbes contributor as well. Bill, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast today.
Great to be here with you, Colleen.
Awesome. Let's start with the big picture. How would you characterize this current economic outlook? We're halfway through 2025. Are associations staring down a recession, or what is more likely?
You tell me what is going to happen with tariffs, and I'll tell you what the economy is going to do. It's a very challenging time, and my best estimate, I'm trying not to say best guess. In this world, it's a guess, is that the tariffs get settled sometime this summer, and we know what they will be going forward. Even if they're high, I think that the economy would not go into a recession if we just get it settled, what's being tariffed and at what rates. We economists, ever since Adam Smith in 1776, have generally thought tariffs are a bad idea. But the question isn't thumbs up or thumbs down. The question is, how bad an idea? And when I push the numbers around, I do not see a recession, even from high tariffs, if we get past the tariff uncertainty. But it's this uncertainty that scares me. And we have anecdotal evidence of companies deferring capital spending, declining to fill open positions because they just don't know what the future is. That is not showing up in the hard data as of mid-June, but you hear enough anecdotes and you start thinking this is going to show up in the data, usually with a time lag. So my best estimate is not a recession, but I think there's a significant risk of it that businesses as well as association leaders should be thinking about.
Yeah, that's really helpful intel. And I feel like we're hearing and seeing the same things. It's that it seems like there's uncertainty, and that's driving an inability to make a decision on a lot of things. And we'll see how it plays out for sure. One of the things you mentioned when we had you on, which was almost exactly 2 years ago, was that associations who act quickly fare best in economic downturns. So
Yeah.
given everything that's going on, what are associations supposed to be doing right now to prepare, regardless of whether a recession hits or not?
First of all, I think it is too soon to take firm action about a recession because I think it's a better than 50-50 chance that we avoid a recession. So that's my base case. Yeah. But the risk is definitely there. So this is a good time for contingency plans. Sketch out, what are you going to do? And I think it would be good to say, hey, what happened to us in the 2008-2009 recession? How badly was our association hit in terms of revenue, membership, whatever is important there? But the 2008-2009 recession was unusually harsh. It was twice as bad as the usual recession. So I think if you can dig through your historical files and find out what happened to your association back then, take the percentage drop, say, in revenue, and cut it in half. A recession in 2025 only half as bad as 2008. And I'd use that as a baseline and say, could we continue operating? Will we be able to pay the bills? What would we want to do if our membership revenue and everything else went down that much. And just sketch out a contingency plan. I tell people one sheet of paper, not a 3-ring binder exercise, because you don't want that much detail. But sketching out a contingency plan does two things for you. One is organizations, whether it's a government, a business, or a nonprofit, if they've thought through ahead of time what they will do in a downturn, they will respond much faster. And speed. When I was writing my book called The Flexible Stance, Thriving in a Boom-Bust Economy, which it may become much more relevant, I noted that as I was working on the book, I picked up the phone and talked to a lot of business leaders, including bankers. And I said to the bankers, what's the difference between a company that survives a recession and a company that goes bankrupt in a recession? And the banker said, oh, it's whether they respond promptly or whether they drag their feet. And nobody likes to cut staff. Nobody likes to cut spending, or even if they're contractors and not employees, you just hate to be cutting. But sometimes that's what you need to do. And having the contingency plan in place helps an organization act faster. But not only is it faster, but it's smarter. Because in a relaxed environment, I don't know if we're relaxed now, but we would have been in a relaxed environment 12 months ago. Then you can think, oh, what are the long run goals of our organization? What are our values? What's really important for us, thinking on a 10-year time horizon, and making sure your short run plans are consistent with those long-term visions is really important.
Yeah. That's really impactful. I love that advice too, because it's so tangible to look back at historical data and make database decisions about the future based on that. And it gives you something to go off of. You're not just guessing and throwing numbers at the wind. So
right.
I
And those
appreciate
numbers
that.
are not going to be accurate for the next recession, but it's a good ballpark starting point, and then you can
Exactly.
recalibrate as you move through.
Yeah, I think that's so perfect. You mentioned tariffs, which obviously
Yeah.
are all over the news. Tax reform, immigration, all of these are back in the headlines. How do you think associations can tackle this and navigate responding to these politically charged policy issues, especially when they directly impact their members' bottom lines?
Yeah, I think that it's important to divide these policies into those that really have a direct impact on the members versus the general condition. And if your members are mostly importers, yeah, if they're actively involved in bringing stuff in, then the association probably ought to take a stand on tariffs. That's a decision for the board of directors, the member leaders. I don't think staff can dictate that. But you've got some industries that are impacted directly by the tariffs. You've got some industries impacted by immigration restrictions. There'll be some tax changes that will affect some industries. And I think it's reasonable for the association to represent its members in those things. But there will be a temptation on the part of many of us to go beyond what directly affects members. So you could have an association whose members do not employ a lot of illegal immigrants or undocumented workers, but some of the people in the association may feel that it's just good public policy to be more open to immigrants. And I would suggest staying away from it, whether you're on the one side or the other side of that issue. If it's not directly relevant, I would suggest backing off. And I have declined to join an athletic related organization that got political. And I just didn't want my money going to a political cause that I wasn't aligned with. So I would, and in fact, what I do when I give presentations to associations on the economic outlook is I only talk about these political issues insofar as it affects the economic forecast. I'm not telling them what Congress should do, what the president should do, what the Federal Reserve should do. And I think that's a good stance for associations. Aside from the areas that are directly relevant to the members, just stay away from that. And there's going to be a wide variety of opinions among a membership on those hot button issues. Try to be open to everybody.
Yeah, I think those are always really hard decisions to make, but I think you're hitting on a cornerstone value for associations is always come back to the mission and the members. And so
Yeah.
making those decisions should be about them and their needs and how you serve them. So I
Yeah.
think that's good advice as well.
And when people who invite me to speak, the thing they're currently most nervous about is, oh, Bill, how are you going to handle these political issues? Because they do not want to offend their members. And I'm with them there. But just keeping that level of nervousness about offending your members is probably valuable.
Too funny. Okay, so tell me what kinds of economic questions you're hearing most from business leaders or association members, and which of those questions have actionable insights tied to them?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I get two kinds of questions. One I call the neighborhood barbecue question. When our neighbors get together and we're grilling burgers and having a beer, I get asked about, will the dollar continue as the reserve currency of the world? And I'm happy to talk about that kind of thing. It is not an actionable question for my answer is not actionable for most people in the audience. And I've had that, like speaking to hardware store managers, somebody asked me about the dollar as an international reserve currency, and I'm happy to talk about it, but it's not actionable. The questions that are actionable, we started with what's the risk of recession? What's the Federal Reserve going to do? And a lot of business decisions hinge on what interest rates are going to do. So those are valuable things. Inflation, both for its own impact on costs as well as its impact on what the Federal Reserve will do, very important these days. And AI, artificial intelligence. I've written a series of articles about how artificial intelligence will affect the economy. That and the demographics of the aging workforce. Those are issues that most companies, nonprofits, and governments should be dealing with because we've got these countervailing forces that are huge. The current decade, I look at the demographics of the working age population, and the current decade from 2020 to 2030 will have the lowest growth of the working age population since the Civil War.
Wow.
And if that were the only thing going on, I'd say, oh man, you're going to have a labor challenge. And if you want to grow your business, it's going to be very tough. And other employers are going to try to poach your workers. But then AI comes along. Well, will there be any jobs left over after AI? I was in the Waymo, the self-driving car taxi in San Francisco, the best driving experience I've ever had, best driver I've ever had. They're coming to a street near you.
Yeah.
But some jobs won't be affected, some will. So I think the labor force issues are something that should be addressed. And there's a lot we do not know about how AI will impact it. But we do know that the old gray-haired folks are retiring, and we need to think about how that is going to play out.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, isn't there?
That's why economics is so much fun.
Oh my gosh, that it is. We talk about all that's going on right now. We are not that far away from the pandemic, and a lot of
Yeah,
associations weathered that by building resilience. They came up with some new revenue models, better digital engagement, just different ways of making money than their traditional
right.
models. Do you think those same strengths are going to carry them through this next storm, whether it's economy problems, AI, you name it, or do they need to rethink the playbook completely?
Let me draw an analogy to what I've seen in private for-profit companies. Some of them diversified poorly, and they just said, oh, we need a different revenue stream and we're focused on consumers. Let's focus on business. And when they get too far away from their competencies, that does not work out very well. But those that say, hey, we are good at this activity, and how can we use that strength in other areas? Those businesses have been successful. So I would say to an association, don't go too far away from what you're good at, but look at where your strengths are, and is there a step you can go? We've certainly learned that virtual education can be valuable, and we never imagined we would be doing television courses. And with AI, I think that if your association is doing a lot of educational things, skill training for the members, it might be worth looking beyond what you and other associations are doing for what's available online. Khan Academy, KHAN, they produce all of these. They started with mathematics, but I think they're in many areas, and they do a really good job of explaining basic concepts. If you want to learn algebra or need to brush up on geometry, that is a good place to go. And I think just looking, what has been done in other areas? Can we use that? And AI enables a lot of that now. So I think there are going to be revolutionary approaches to skills training. And if you can combine that with some human connection. One of my buddies is providing small group coaching, 4 or 6 people in a group, and they have accountability partners that get in touch with people. So a combination of using technology, but keeping the human connection is, I think, where we're going.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And you hear that a lot now. It's yes, AI is amazing, but you need the human touch and you need that human connection to really excel.
Yeah. And when I go to an association meeting, everybody's favorite part is the cocktail reception. Even if they don't drink alcohol, they want to go and mingle, schmooze, learn from other people, and have that human connection.
Yeah, for sure. The other big question I want to make sure I ask you about that's on every association's mind. So, with economic uncertainty, I think the biggest fear is you see members pull back, sponsors pull back, less growth. What's your advice to associations on how to communicate their value during times when members are especially cost conscious?
I would do 2 things. One is, first of all, know what's going on in your members. And there are some associations that will do a monthly or quarterly survey of how's business, what are you optimistic about the future, is your revenue up? And I think that's useful. If it can be useful to your members, it's definitely useful to the association leaders. That will help you see a downturn coming before it shows up in membership statistics or the annual trade show reservations. So many associations have 2 big months for their revenue, when dues renew and when the trade show comes. And if you don't know what's going to happen except twice a year, you're in trouble. And also, I like to talk to people. And that's one of the reasons I like the cocktail party. I'm always going up to people. How's business? What are your challenges? How are you dealing with this issue? And I think association leaders need to be talking to those folks, and not just the stalwart members of the board who are going to show up at every convention, come hell or high water, but the people who sometimes show and sometimes don't. Just get a list of those and just periodically call, and do not twist their arms to sign up for the convention, but just say, hey, how's business? What are your issues? What should we as an association be dealing with? I think that knowing is probably the most important thing, and that will help you find the value. And there may be subjects that are really bugging the leaders, and if you hear about them, you may not have a clue how to help them, but just knowing what their problem is the first step to being more valuable.
Yes, to all of that. That was so well said. I think talking and listening to your members for real, like really talking to them, really listening to them is one of the most underrated solutions to almost every association problem. So I love hearing that. Bill, this has been tremendous. And I think a lot of associations are really looking for this kind of guidance and advice right now, are a bit unsure with where the economy is going. So I greatly appreciate your time. Before we let you go, though, we like to wrap up all of our podcasts with a little just for fun questions. And we have
Yeah.
some new ones since you've been on last.
Uh-oh.
Yes. So a little rapid fire here. Have you gotten to get away to anywhere fun lately?
I, in the summer, every week, go down to the Willamette River and race a small sailboat.
That
And
sounds
that's
awesome.
the most fun thing I do in the summer. I'm trying to perfect an obsolete method of transportation.
I love it. All right. Are you a podcast listener? And if so, do you have any that you recommend for our listeners?
Yeah, I like something called Econ Talk, and you do not have to be an economist to appreciate it. Some of the episodes do go a little bit into the weeds on economics, but the host is really interested in not just money, but people and how do they find meaning in their life. And yeah, economics is about coping with limited resources, but what we're all really trying to find is love and meaning and purpose. And Econ Talk will get into that.
Very cool. I'll have to check that one out. All right. What's one place in the US you've never been to but are dying to go?
I don't actually have any place. I've been to a lot of places, and the thing that strikes me is that wherever I go, people tell me that it's just a wonderful place to live. And I've been to one place, I won't name it because I'd insult somebody, but I thought it was miserable, and I had to go there several times. Miserable time every time. But the locals say, "Oh man, this is heaven."
That's too funny. I love it. All right, last one. Finish this sentence. When you see me looking at my phone, it probably means that I'm
Lost.
I love
I'm
it.
not a big user of a bunch of apps, but without the map, I'm lost.
I hear you. The GPS is my godsend, so I feel that deeply. All right, Bill. Well, thank you again. I just greatly appreciate you taking the time to join us on the podcast today.
Happy to do it. And the job that association leaders do is tremendously important for a huge swath of America. So keep up the good work.
That's a wrap for today's episode. The Association Insights podcast, previously known as the Association 100 podcast, is a production of Onward and Upward Marketing and Communications, where our mission is to make associations and nonprofits the go-to source in their industries through earned media and thought leadership. This podcast is an extension of our newsletter, a bi-monthly collection of best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies delivered straight to your inbox. Have you undertaken a big change at your association? Or do you have some words of wisdom from the trenches of association life? We want to hear from you, and so do our listeners. Drop us a note at info@onwardupward.com. That's info@onwrdupwrd.com. Be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share with your friends and colleagues. We're available anywhere podcasts are found. Come back next week for more association insights and inspiration. Thanks for tuning in.